I'm genuinely worried about crypto. Today's show is going to be a very, very, very different show because I know I'm supposed to come here and tell you guys about the bounce and how everything's going to be okay, but I've been here for 12 years and I can tell you that I've never, ever, ever been as worried about the future of crypto as I am today. And it's not about the price. Like when I look at the price, I mean, price, I guess, is one part of it, but it's not about the price and the fact that we're trading at 76,000. It's something much, much, much deeper than that. It's about the fact that there's no one here. There's no energy left in this industry anymore. We don't really even know what Bitcoin is anymore. And there are a whole lot of data points that I want to show you in the show, which really make me very, very, very worried about what we're actually still doing here and what the future of crypto is. So today's a very different show. And you can see I didn't even start it with the normal music because I want to have a real discussion with you about the future of this industry. I mean, I make videos in this industry. My whole life is around crypto media and being in this industry and crypto investing. And for the first time in 12 years, I'm really, really, really questioning my conviction and whether Bitcoin's going to bounce. So that's what today's about. It's a very different type of show, but I think it's a show that we really need to have and a heart-to-heart that we really need to have. So let's get the show on the road, guys. I mean, I was contemplating whether or not I should even make this show because I know that people tune in here to get crypto news and crypto coverage. And I know that you all look to me and to people like me to actually give you hope around the industry. But ultimately, when I see warning signs, it's my responsibility to come here and to give you the reality of what I actually see. And as I said, for the first time in 12 years, this is the most worried that I've been in this industry in the last 12 years. Bitcoin's always faced challenges. Crypto's always faced challenges. And that was one of the things that brought the entire community together. But I think that the challenges that we're facing now are different. And in the show, I'm going to break down the challenges and I want to show you the data and I'm going to show you some rays of hope at the end of it. But I really want to position this show as one of those honest shows. So listen, if that sounds good to you and you're not already subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel, put your notification bells on. I know about 40% of people aren't actually subscribed. So if you could put that on and subscribe, that would be amazing. Also, just help me get distribution of this video. All you need to do is smash the like button. So let me tell you what the cause of my concern is. It's not price. And I mean, we should probably talk about the price. Like, you know, yesterday, what happened was we broke down, or what happened was the stock market went down. The stock market didn't go down a lot. The stock market went down about 1%. And what happened was that Bitcoin broke down completely. In fact, if you look at how low Bitcoin went to about 72,000 or 73,000. Now, that's a critical level because the reason why that's such a critical level is if you zoom out completely and you go back, you're talking about Bitcoin going back to the top of the range of the Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and Gary Gensler era. So what you are saying is the entire election pump, the entire Trump trade has been completely nullified, completely wiped out. Not only that, if you look at the 𝗙𝗃𝗃, at the same time, the 𝗙𝗃𝗃 is down about 15% or 11%, or in fact, let me actually get you an accurate number. So let's say that Trump came in November, somewhere over here, and today we are over here. So no, wait, sorry, that's November last year. Let's go, so it's November 2020. So let's say Trump came in somewhere over here. That's when he was inaugurated. And today the dollar is down 11.45%. So even if everything else just stayed the same, there was no improvements in Bitcoin, in the situation, etc. Even if, then we would expect Bitcoin to be 11% higher because Bitcoin is priced in dollars and the 𝗙𝗃𝗃 collapsed. So net, what we can say is that after yesterday's price move, basically, we've gone back to the Joe Biden, Gary Gensler, and Kamala Harris era. Like, that's literally where the price of Bitcoin is on a real adjusted basis. So you can see it in that chart over here. The other thing is you've probably noticed that in this correction, we actually cannot catch a bounce. The RSIs can't go up. The sentiment indicators can't go up. We can't get a higher high. The best rally that we've had since the 10th of October is a 20% recovery. And that completely broke down. And that brought us to where we are today. So that's from a price point of view. But as I said to you, this is not about price for me, right? It's not about price because I've been here for a long time, and I can weather any price move because I'm holding mainly spot and I'm holding mainly good bags. And so it's not about the price. It's about something that's much, much, much more fundamental. And I want to show you what it is. I've been trying to put my finger on it for quite a while. And a friend of mine, 𝗙𝗓𝗔𝗘𝗃, actually posted this tweet out there. He said, the difference between now and the other cycles is that the industry is spiritually dead. And that got me thinking, right? There is something different about this cycle. The difference between the previous cycles and this cycle is that in the previous cycles, when the price went down, you went to Twitter and you saw people posting things like, just hodl, it's going to be okay, Bitcoin is the ultimate store of value, hodl. We came up with a meme around hodl. We came up with like buying more, but you don't see that today. Today, when you look at your Twitter, there's no more hodls. There's no more people buying Bitcoin. There's no more people saying, buy the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip. There are no more people saying moon. There are no more people saying $1 million a Bitcoin. Now, in the previous markets, even though we were in a bear market, people were interested. People were saying, buy and hodl. People were saying, if you buy Bitcoin now, you will be well rewarded. But you're not actually getting that now. You're not seeing those posts on the timeline. Those of you that were here will remember it. In fact, nobody's interested. Retail is completely obliterated. The old OGs, and this is very, very, very important. So the old OGs, they are now becoming disinterested in Bitcoin. And maybe that's part of the reason, right? Because why are the OGs becoming disinterested in Bitcoin? They were here for a fight. What they liked about Bitcoin so much was the fact that they could go against the establishment and they could fight for something that gave us human rights. And that right was the right to have decentralized money that is not controlled by the government with limited supply where the government couldn't print more cash. But now there's no more fight. Now, this fight that these guys were fighting for so long is over. And Bitcoin hit $100,000. And so what are these Bitcoin OGs doing? They're saying, look, we bought our Bitcoin many, many, many years ago. We bought it between 10 and 15 years ago, or between 5 and 12 years ago, or whatever it is. And the truth is, we've hit the $100,000 level. And as Mike Novogratz said yesterday on the Galaxy earnings, because he summarized it pretty well.
A reaction function. Then you sell a little more, you sell a little more. And it is so hard to hodl, to literally hold a position and ride it for a long, long trend. And there were a tremendous amount of kind of religious believers in this concept of hodling, of holding, and not letting go of your Bitcoin. And somehow that virus or that fever broke and you started seeing some selling. Quantum has been the big excuse for people.
So he says quantum is an excuse, and we'll talk about quantum in a second. But he said, there was this virus of like hodl and we'll be okay, and it's all going to be, and that's gone. And the OGs don't have the fight in them anymore. And I think that why that happened was because if you think about who these OGs are, these are mavericks. These are people that went against the establishment. And now, ultimately, Bitcoin is in your Merrill Lynch fund, and it's in your ETF, and it's held by DATs. And that's not what the OGs actually fought for. They fought for this money that the whole world was going to use, ex-governments. And they didn't fight for money that was going to be held in your wallet in JP Morgan and held in your wallet. And so they've lost their fight. They also bought very, very early. Like if you look at the people that are actually selling. So this is a chart of the cohort of the people that are actually selling. Look at the biggest part of the chart here. It's people that were between 7 and 10 years, right? Now, you go back on the Bitcoin chart 7 and 10 years. So we'll go back 10 years. And we'll look at the price 10 years ago on Bitcoin. And I think probably the best way to do that is to do it on a monthly. So, let's go back to 2015, 2016. They bought here at $472. They got to $100,000. I think that's an amazing, amazing, amazing return. And so they're selling and they're taking their money with them. And that's pretty much what's happening. So that's the first thing. There's no more energy here. The people that were saying hodl, they're not here anymore, and they don't have the fight in them anymore because there's nothing left to fight for. I mean, ultimately, the president and his family are buying Bitcoin. I mean, what are you fighting for? The US president and his family are all pro-Bitcoin. There's no more fight. And ultimately, because there's no more fight, there's nothing to rally against. We used to rally on Twitter against the government, against the institution, but now they're with us, so there's nothing to rally against. And that's why maybe Zcash may be so good, and we'll talk about that a bit later. It also doesn't help us that no one knows what Bitcoin is anymore. Bitcoin was supposed to be cash. It's not cash. It's too expensive to be cash. The velocity of Bitcoin doesn't work as cash. Then it was supposed to be a store of value. And I mean, we've got to be honest with ourselves. The store of values have been running like absolute crazy. Look at gold. Look at silver. Those are the store of values at the moment. And Bitcoin is not a store of value. It hasn't been doing that. It just hasn't been doing that. And it's not also, Bitcoin's not a store of value. It's also not a technology. I mean, when I say it's not a technology, it's also not tracking the NASDAQ or the S&P 500. And so what is Bitcoin? And that's what people don't know. In fact, crazy enough, what we found here is that we found that Bitcoin is actually the most correlated with some random ETF. Like this is the ETF over here, and this is the Bitcoin correlation. Instead of being correlated to the NASDAQ, which would have made it a risk asset, or correlated to silver and gold, which would have made it a commodity, I mean, Bitcoin is correlated to this thing called the IGV. Now, what is this IGV? IGV is this ETF that holds Microsoft, Adobe, Salesforce, Oracle, ServiceNow, and Intuit. I mean, those are all SaaS companies that make their money in SaaS. Bitcoin doesn't generate money and it doesn't generate SaaS. And it's kind of weird to think that Bitcoin is performing, you can't say like a risk asset, because if it was a risk asset, then you'd say, well, why isn't it performing like the NASDAQ? Maybe it's performing like the tech stocks that exclude the outperformers on the NASDAQ. Maybe that's what it is. Because you can see that Microsoft and Salesforce, they've also had a very, very rough time since October 10th. And so for some reason, the market is pricing Bitcoin as SaaS or as a risk asset that excludes the good performing risk assets on the NASDAQ, which is, like, if you want people to buy Bitcoin, you need a narrative. What's the narrative? The narrative store of value. No, you're not a store of value. Well, you're not money either. So what are you? Oh, no, we're an immature store of value. Okay, well, I don't really want to buy an immature store of value. And then to add to that, not only do we not know what it is, but then there's this like risk hanging on our shoulders, which is this quantum computing risk. Mike Novogratz went on the call yesterday, and you know what he said? He said they executed a trade where they sold $9 billion for a specific wallet, an OG, on the market directly. And he said the story in layman's terms, which has always been told to me by the smart guys who are in and around Bitcoin core developers, is that as we get closer to quantum computing, we're going to get closer to quantum resistant, and you'll have the Bitcoin code, and you won't have the Bitcoin code change in time. So now Mike Novogratz is saying the quiet part out loud. He's saying, the reason why this guy sold, I guess he's speculating, because I don't think that that's the reason. The reason why the guy sold is because of quantum computing and the threat of quantum computing. And listen, it's a real threat. So for those of you who don't know how the quantum computing threat actually works, how it works is when you have Bitcoin in a wallet, or when you make a transaction, you display the public key. The public key is effectively your Bitcoin address. So you display your public key. And the whole 𝗏256 encryption, which is the Bitcoin encryption, the whole thing says that if you've got a public key, you can never work out what the private key is, because you just don't have enough computation power. But the thing is that when quantum computing happens, then you will be able to break the 𝗏256. Now, if you want to watch a video about that, and I broke down the whole risk. Let me get you the Crypto Insider. So I made a video on the other channel, Crypto Insider, about the quantum threat, and it's really worth watching. But in a nutshell, we are getting to a position now on Bitcoin where the time that it would take to coordinate the network and to create an upgrade is longer than the actual quantum computing threat. And so that's got a lot of people very worried. Because ultimately, what's going to happen is one day we're going to have quantum computers. Quantum computers are going to see the public keys, and they're going to attack the Bitcoin network and basically start moving around the Bitcoin network, because they'll be able to get everyone's private keys. And that's the worst case. At the best case, they can actually do something. However, even if they do something, you've got a whole lot of wallets like Satoshi's wallet, which have been inactive for all these years, probably dead, and a whole lot of other people that have lost their private keys. And those Bitcoin, estimated 25 to 30% of the Bitcoin, are not in circulation. The thing is that when there's quantum computing, then the hacker, even though we can move all our Bitcoin today to a quantum resistant wallet and they'll be inaccessible to the hacker. But there's all those old coins, 25 to 30% of the old coins that are not actually in circulation, which will now come back onto the market. And so you've now got this asset where no one really knows what it is, what it's supposed to be. They know what it's supposed to be, but it's not that. It's not a store of value. And it's got this quantum risk. And this quantum risk now means that you can get 30% more supply onto the market. It doesn't make it a very investable asset, right? And I mean, the big fund managers are seeing this. Like Christopher Wood, he's a very respected fund manager. And he wrote and he said because of the quantum computing threat, he sold all of his Bitcoin. And he was actually a Bitcoin proponent. He was the guy that told people to put 10 to 15% of their retirement funds into Bitcoin. And he's now coming out and saying, I'm selling because of the quantum computing threat. Then, of course, you have AI. And right now, if you look at where AI is in terms of share of voice, that's what the investment landscape looks like in terms of AI. In 2024, the ratio of VC AI money went 8 times the number in crypto, and in 2025, it's 11 times the number in crypto. And what that's telling us is that investors are saying they're much more interested in AI than they are in crypto and Bitcoin at the moment, right? And so they're also leaving. They're basically saying, look, I mean, great crypto, but we'll do AI. And I mean, if you listen to Andreessen Horowitz, who are the biggest capital allocators from a VC point of view in the world, or specifically in the United States, they mentioned they raised a whole lot of funds, but they didn't once mention that they raised a crypto fund. It seems like they've also left crypto. Then you got the DATs, which the DATs were the big buyers of crypto. And I don't know if you guys read this, but 𝗏𝗏𝗏 sold their ETH and actually bought 2 jet engines and is going to lease out jet engines. So the DATs are pretty much leaving because there's no real point for them to actually be alive. Then you've got, the AI problem. And the AI problem isn't only about investing in AI, but it's actually much worse than that. And the reason why it's much worse than that is because what's happening is the following. Right now, the biggest constraint in the world is energy. We don't have enough energy to power the AI revolution. If we had more energy, the AI revolution would be happening a lot faster. But the biggest constraint in the world is is energy. And the thing about energy is measured in, let's say, megawatts or kilowatts or whatever else. But let's talk about megawatts for now. If you have access to energy, then you want to maximize your yield or the return that you get per megawatt of energy. So if you're a Bitcoin miner, then you got to ask yourself a question. Effectively, what are Bitcoin miners? They take electricity, they convert it into Bitcoin. That's what it is, right? It's take electricity, put machines, convert it into Bitcoin. So what are these guys doing now? Well, they're all announcing that they are pivoting to AI. Like here's 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, why Bitcoin miners are powering AI systems. And they're not the only one. Another one, talking about moving to AI. It's a very simple calculation, right? It's a money calculation. And you can see it when you look at the hash rate. The hash rate effectively tells you the number of miners that are securing the Bitcoin network. And what you can see is that hash rate has fallen off a cliff. Why? Because the miners are also leaving. Why are the miners leaving? It's a very simple calculation. If you look at the amount of money that they make, okay, they make more money farming AI. So if you take an AI cloud, and you say you're making $5 to $6 million profit per year per megawatt, and on Bitcoin you're losing 1.1 million, or you're making 1.1 million. And so where would you rather allocate your megawatts? Well, you'd rather allocate your megawatts to AI. And so what's going to happen is the number of miners that secures the network is going to drop, the hash rate is going to drop, the difficulty is going to adjust down, and the remaining miners are going to make money. But why am I saying this? Is to show you that every sector is leaving. The investors are leaving. The retail, the investors are leaving. In fact, the investors have left. Where have they gone? They've gone to the coins that are going parabolic, and that's gold and silver, and even the S&P. So investors are leaving. VC investors are leaving. OGs are leaving, and I really don't see who's coming to buy our bags. I don't see why they should come and buy our bags. When you come and buy someone's bags, you come and buy the bags because you believe that there's a use case for the asset, or you believe that the asset is a store of value or whatever else. And I mean, that's not what Bitcoin is. That's not what Bitcoin is right now. So that's why I'm worried. That's why I've been here for 12 years and I've never been as concerned as I am about this market. There is no energy. Markets are about energy. Markets are about harnessing energy into price, basically, into movement. And there's no more energy left in this market, and there's no one to actually create the energy. That's pretty much where we are. And to be honest, I've been here, as I said, for 12 years. And in the last 12 years, I have never been as worried as I am today. It's really, really, really that simple. I've never been as worried as I am today because I just don't see how this turns. And I mean, I guess you can see it in the price. Like, it's just going down and down and down. No reason for it to go. No one's buying the dip. You remember the old cycles? It was like, buy the dip, buy the BTFD, buy the dip. I haven't seen a buy the dip anywhere. All I see is basically a falling knife. So that's why I'm worried. Now let's talk about the silver lining. So yes, this is why I'm worried. This is why I'm more concerned than I've been around Bitcoin than I have in the past 12 years. But there is a silver lining. And the silver lining is that is what bear markets are supposed to do. They are supposed to break your conviction, and they are supposed to get everyone to dump their coins and to lose belief. And then a new cohort of investors basically actually comes in and buys them up, and they get the returns. Now, as it relates to the OGs, I mean, thank you for your service. You guys put up an amazing fight, and you guys now need to move on to a new fight. And the reins have to be handed over to the big corporates now. So you almost think about it like a startup, right? And you say, you know, when you have a startup, there's a certain founder that is good for the early stages of a startup, which is someone like me. I'm really good at early stage startups. But when it gets too big and when it starts maturing and when it starts plateauing, that's not me. That's not typically people who want to fight against the establishment. Those are the mavericks. That's the Elon Musks of the world. Not that I'm comparing myself to Elon Musk, but you know what I'm saying. And so I think that now we are handing the reins over to people who are much more suited. You know, we're 1 year into the ETFs, or just over 1 year into the ETFs, and you know, they have accumulated $70 billion, and a whole lot of ETFs have just been launched. And I think that what we're going through is a stage where the old Bitcoin guard is handing over to the new Bitcoin guard. And in this change, there's going to be a point where it's going to be, I want to actually get you a chart here. Just give me 1 sec. Let me just try and find this chart for you. So there's going to be a point where it's going to be cheap enough for people to start buying. And when they do, what's going to happen is that the price is going to go up, and the best advertisement for an asset, the best way to create a narrative, is for the price to go up. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think at some point it's going to become so cheap that people start buying it. Now, I think what may also be a catalyst for that is that, number one, on the Bitcoin chart, we're going to start coming down, right? So how low can we come down? Well, you know, I've said publicly that I think that you know, there's many different levels that we can go down to. For me, there's two big levels that I'm watching, and you know, if we break these levels, then I really don't know where we're going. But you know, the first level is the 69,000 level, which is over here, which is the previous cycle's high, and I think that's a very, very, very key level. And then after that, there's the 200-week moving average, which is at 57,000. We spoke about that yesterday. I kind of think that those are the two bottom. Here's a line over here. That's the two bottom calls for Bitcoin. And by the way, we're not that far away. I mean, from the first level, we're $6,000 away, and then from there, it's another $10,000. You know, we've weathered the storm this far. And I think at some point, what's going to happen is that people are going to say this asset is cheap enough to actually take a punt. And when they do, that's going to start getting the momentum moving again. The next thing is that I think at some point this has got to end. And this is, you know, the big commodities actually going up. And I think what's going to happen is we're going to peak in gold. And I don't know where we're going to peak, whether we peak at 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000. I don't really know. We'll go all the way up here. And then what will happen is we will correct and we will consolidate just like we did in the previous cycles. So I don't think we're going to correct and go all the way down. I think there is going to be a repricing, but I think this is a little bit too aggressive for repricing. So I think what's going to happen is that we're going to go up and then down, and then we're just going to consolidate. So you can see, like, at this point, we just consolidate and we go marginally up again. And then that's when people say, you know what, like, the fun's over in gold and in silver. And I'm not saying there's going to be a rotation, but I'm saying when the fun is over and the returns are over in gold and silver, then people are going to start looking for returns. And where are they going to find returns? Well, they're going to look at an asset that's been hit 50, 60, 70% and say, that's a reasonable place to start looking for the returns. So I think that's effectively what's going to happen. Yeah, so look, that's the thesis. I had to be honest about it. I don't like making these videos, and I know everyone looks to me to make, you got to be bullish, otherwise it's not the popular view. But I also have to tell you when I'm concerned, and I have to point out the data points that actually concern me and show you the whole picture. As I said to you before, I'm not too alarmed because I know that the price will recover somehow. I don't think it's the end of Bitcoin forever. I do though believe that we're going to get through a hard time. As it relates to quantum, I do believe that Bitcoin has a big challenge, but I do believe that the other assets are actually starting to protect themselves. Like Coinbase has a quantum research council. Solana starts testing post-quantum signatures. Ethereum is doing it as a priority. Zcash, Starknet, Zcash and Starknet are pretty much quantum resistant already today, right? So I do believe that if the industry does lose faith in Bitcoin, then they will move to, I don't think crypto is going to be finished. Maybe the one asset Bitcoin will be finished because the developers can't coordinate and start something. The biggest problem with quantum is that developers can't coordinate. They can't agree. And if you can't agree in a decentralized way, then how are you supposed to fix the problem, right? But I do think the other assets will be quantum resistant. Sui, Solana, Starknet, ZK Sync, Zcash, all of those are going to be quantum resistant. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. Again, I'm concerned. I'm keeping an eye. I'm not buying or selling anything at the moment. In fact, I did buy some more Zcash, and actually, let's just actually go back to our here and just see on Pinex. I do want to start setting up a couple of bots. So I think the one bot that I actually want to set up is, if you want to follow me, I'll leave a link to Pinex and a link to the bots. But for one, I want to set up a Zcash bot because I just think at these prices for quantum resistant as a quantum resistant asset, I think we'd be silly not to actually to start setting up that bot. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just create a futures grid bot. Oh man, I don't have. Okay, don't remind me again today. Bye. Okay, so let's set up a long bot. So what is the price range? I think when it comes to Zcash, I'm kind of looking at probably like the 200 all the way back up to 700. So I would go from $200 to 550. Let's start now for 550. We can always move it up. Let's go with 500 grids, so that we get lots of trading. And I think here I'm going to put like $20,000 into this bot. $20,000, and I'm going to go on. I'm not going to go on crazy leverage. I'm going to go on like 5x leverage. Now remember, these grid bots trade every move, and they trade the actual range, right? So let's just have a look, see what happens if I do that. What my liquidation price actually is. So let's just have a look here. So if I do that, and you can copy this, my liquidation price is around 215. I'm not comfortable with that. I want to actually add some extra margin in here. See what that does to my liquidation price. Now hold on a second. Why is it not? Okay, here's the extra margin. So let's add actual investment 25,000 or 20,000. And I'm going to also it's time to start buying these things. Extra margin. Let's just add another 5k extra margin. See what that does to our liquidation. So let's add maybe 10k extra margin. So we don't want to get liquidated. So $186. I think $186 is a pretty safe thing here. I'm not going to use a stop loss or a take profit for now, and I'm going to create that bot. The other bot that I'm actually going to create to trade for me is gold. And the reason why I want to take the gold trade is the following, right? So if you look at where gold is at the moment, you've got gold got rejected here at this level, the 5,600. It got rejected all the way down to 4,400, which basically gave it a range. And now it's going to probably range here to try and attack this level and either pass the level or not pass the level. That'll be the moment of truth. But for a grid bot that's trading in and out within a range, that's an opportunity, right? So what I'm doing here is I'm going to create a bot just to trade that range, right? So I'm going to take, I think that's the gold price. So I'm going to take that one. I'm going to do a price range on gold. I'm going from the top of this, from 4419 all the way to 5,700. It's just for this range. So 4420 to 5,700. I'm going to go with 400 grids because I think it's quite a small range. No, I think 300 grids is probably better. You want to try and get your ratio to about 0.2 because you don't want to pay too much in fees. That's the problem. Let's see, 200 grids. There we go. I think 200 grids. Investment amount, I'm going to put 20 grand into that bot as well. You guys can track us. I'll leave links to the bots, to the bots below so that you guys can, if you want to follow the exact thing, open an account on Pinex, use these links. Remember the grid bots, not only do they make money when you move, but every time we go up, they sell, and when they go down, they buy, and they keep buying the grid. All right, let's go and talk about, so we're going to go, I'm also going to take a 5x leverage on gold. 5x leverage on gold. I'm going to invest $20,000. I'm going to unclick the auto reserve, and I've got a 3894 liquidation. I think I'm pretty safe there. And I'm going to create that. I'll leave links to the Zcash bot and the gold bot. I've showed you why I'm doing it, and I'll set up a couple of bots in the next couple of days as well. All right, guys. So I know it wasn't our normal show, but I think you needed to hear it so that you guys can make, good decisions. I do also believe that it's always the darkest before the dawn, and I think it is starting to get really dark, and I think that things will turn. I know that Crypto, who closed his position, his profitable positions at about a $30 million profit, he came out yesterday and said, look, it's time to start new positions, and basically the pain has been enough, and he believes that because we didn't go all the way up in the cycle, that we're not going to go as far down in the cycle. And I think that is definitely a theory that we should be looking at. Either way, the risk reward is starting to look good here. It's not the end of the correction, but the risk reward is starting to look good here. And so potentially, time to maybe start nibbling. And that's why I'm starting to set up a few of those bots. All right, my friends, I'll see you again tomorrow, hopefully with a more bullish show. Until then, trade well, my friends.